Hey, everybody, welcome into episode 170 of the Leaning Into Leadership podcast. My guest on the show today is Luis Baez. Luis is a revenue enablement strategist and a sales coach who is dedicated to serving executives and sales leaders in businesses across the entire country. And Luis, here's what I really find fascinating about him. This is the definition of a self-made person. And he'll tell you that story. I don't want to steal any of his story, but from where his roots were to where he really started to take off, working with some of the biggest Silicon Valley startups like LinkedIn and Google and Uber and Tesla, to where he is now as an individual who works hard to help every single one of us understand personal branding and to understand the leadership side of personal branding, which is what I think is so intriguing for this particular podcast and for this particular episode. Luis shares a lot of fun stories. He really shares some deep insights into the things we need to be thinking about and how, if we just lean in and listen to what those around us are saying, we will find what it is they need, and we can find within ourselves what it is we can do to help them most. That's what I love most about this episode, folks. It's absolutely fantastic. I know you're going to love it, and you're going to hear the whole thing right after this. Do you ever feel like you're the only one reading your school newsletter? Well, Smore is here to help you change that. Built for educators, Smore gives you hundreds of easy-to-use templates to craft newsletters your community will love and that they'll actually read. You can add videos, images, polls, and more. Stop guessing about what content your community wants to read. Use Smore's analytics to see who opens your emails and which links are getting clicked. And did I mention, Smore lets you translate your newsletter into more than 100 different languages. I'm telling you, this is the platform that you want to use. Sign up now and take $50 off your first year of your Smore plan. Make your newsletters easier and more engaging at smore.com/teachbetter. Again, that's smore.com/teachbetter. Hey, Leaning Into Leadership listeners, it's Darren here, and I've got something really exciting to share with you. I've been working on something that I know is going to be a game changer for so many of you out there, especially if you're an early career principal or a school leader who's just feeling overwhelmed, unsure of where to focus your time, and just needing a little bit of clarity. I've spent years coaching school leaders and speaking at conferences across the country, and one of the biggest challenges I hear all the time is this. How do I prioritize my leadership actions when I get constantly pulled in 100 different directions? Now, if that sounds like you, I've got some great news. I am launching a brand new digital course designed specifically to help early career school leaders take control of their time, focus on what truly matters, and lead with clarity and purpose. In this course, Take Control of Your Leadership, a Road to Awesome map for early career leaders, will give you the tools and strategies to overcome overwhelm and set you up for long-term success. And here's where it gets really exciting. We are officially in pre-launch mode. You'll have a chance to get early access. I'll be releasing more details over the next few weeks, but here's what you need to know right now. Get over to roadtoawesome.net and sign up for our mailing list. As a subscriber, you'll get exclusive early bird pricing, plus some extra bonuses that I'll be sharing really soon, and you don't want to miss that. In the meantime, keep tuning in to the Leaning Into Leadership podcast because I'll continue to be sharing more tips, strategies, and course updates in the coming weeks. I can't wait to take this journey with you and to help you lean into your leadership in an even bigger way. Now, thank you for listening. Let's get to today's episode. When I first made the decision to step away from my full-time work, the career that I had built in public education after 26 years, and become an entrepreneur, it was not exactly an easy decision. It was certainly met with some trepidations, some concerns, some fear, a lot of excitement, and then a little bit more fear. Because when you make that move, it's certainly something that has a lot of challenges. If you're like me and you are not somebody who spent a lot of time studying or learning business. Now, I certainly had the last 3 years, but prior to that, I had not. So there's a lot that goes into jumping into being an entrepreneur, being a self made individual. And today on the podcast, we're going to go in a little bit different direction than we normally do. And I really, really am excited about this conversation. Joining me on the show is Luis Baez. And Luis will tell you a little bit about himself here in a minute, but this is somebody who really works hard to help individuals not just sell whatever they have, but to really sell themselves, to really build personal brand, to really take on leadership from a completely different angle. So, super stoked for this conversation. Before we dive into that, just Luis, welcome in, man. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, my friend. I appreciate this opportunity to connect with you and your audience and leave it all on the table for y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good stuff right there. So let's do this. Give us a little bit of, I don't know, the Luis Baez story. Start wherever you want, take us as far as you want, and then,
Yeah.
like I said before we hit record, man, I'm just going to chase something that you share, and we're gonna have an awesome conversation.
Absolutely. I am someone who was born in Puerto Rico, grew up in New York City, 10 minutes away from Yankee Stadium, grew up in poverty, and went on to be the first in my family to pursue a higher education, the first to hold a passport, to start an LLC and start a business, travel, etc. And so unexpected, outcomes from my life. And it led me down this pursuit of trying to figure out whether I wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a business person. And I ended up in the business lane unexpectedly after dropping out of law school. And my friend said to me, "You have this magnetism about you. You have this way of like pulling people in and being very persuasive. And I wonder if sales might be a path for you." And so she invited me to interview at WebMD, where she was working at the time. I went through 8 rounds of interviews, knowing nothing about sales or corporate or tech or anything like that. And I ended up getting the job, which cemented my confidence and my capacity to sell myself. And fast forward to a career that moved me to California, and I ended up being recruited to work at LinkedIn, Google, Uber, Tesla, where I cut my teeth in enterprise sales, selling multi-million dollar deals, and sales leadership, and leading teams across all of North America. And when I sort of reached a certain point in my career, I pivoted into revenue enablement, which was all around training and certifying and coaching sales reps and loving that work. And eventually, I've been tapped into helping other businesses and other people develop their own brands. And so that's the work that I do now, is that I went from helping people sell products and things to now expanding my work into helping people sell themselves, helping entrepreneurs land that pitch, land those investments and first customers, and hire teams and align them around performance. That's the work that I do now, and I love it.
Yeah, it's certainly exciting work. Like I said right off the top, when you first make that leap into entrepreneurship, and certainly for me, after being in public ed for 26 years, right? I mean, if you'd have told me 3 years prior to me leaving public education that I was going to be an entrepreneur, that I'd run my own business and have success, considerable success doing it, I I don't know what I would have said. I don't think I would have laughed about it, but I think I would have been like, huh? Are you kidding me? I mean, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Right. And I think that's what's just so interesting. I love hearing other entrepreneurs' stories. And I want to get into the conversation about building your own brand. A part of the spin that I want to take with that in in education, and a lot of the people that listen to this podcast, not all, but a lot are in education. And one of the pieces we really have to do a good job of is taking control of the narrative about our schools and about our classrooms. But before we go there, I want to dig a little bit deeper into your path, and maybe just have you talk a little bit about when that moment started to happen for you, when, whether it was a tap on the shoulder from someone else, or if it was you seeing something that made you say, I want to now help others do the work that I do. It's one thing to go do the work, to go do the sales, right? Or in my case, to be a school and a district leader. But at a point for me, there was this call, like this feeling in me that said, I want to help other leaders be better leaders. So talk a little bit about that. I'm just so curious to hear that part of your journey.
Oh, it was entirely accidental and beautifully so, right? So I was at the time working at I was at Google, and I was recruited to work at the company through LinkedIn. I was also recruited to work at LinkedIn through my activity on the platform. I'd learned how to optimize my profile and to engage on the platform in a way that attracted recruiters, which helped me cut through the noise of job applications and things like that, right? While I was at Google, everyone was quite curious to understand how I'd been recruited there, what the interview process was like. It was just a place that everyone aspired to work in the industry, or at least be able to have a shot and a chance. And so I got taps on the shoulder of like, how do you optimize your LinkedIn profile? So I helped a few people, started charging for services around that, and it became a side hustle. And then eventually I started getting taps on the shoulder of like, dude, how do you run a business on the side while working in enterprise sales? Like, how do you have the time, the energy? Like, how do you manage that? And I got enough of those taps until eventually I said, you know what, let me help someone launch their own side hustle. And I was very specific about the parameters of like, I'm not helping you launch a whole full scale business, but I'm going to help someone step into solopreneurship and, and use their skills outside of the workplace in this way. And one client became two became four. And then fast forward to me launching group coaching programs around this and helping. At one point, I had a group coaching program of over 40 online entrepreneurs. They were lawyers, writers, coaches, consultants, service providers, who were embarking and building online businesses and personal brands. And then I eventually started launching online self-paced courses, and at that point, that got the attention of a publisher, Madecraft, who tapped my shoulder and said, we'd love for you to create courses and work with us. And we work with distribution channels like LinkedIn Learning. And, we'd love for you to come be an author with us. And so that also cemented my credibility and credentials in my business. And I started getting other businesses tapping my shoulder and saying, hey, can you create training programs for our teams? Can you help my sales team? Can you create our sales playbook? Can you launch our coaching program? And the at that point, the shifting point for me was actually the group coaching program. And it was the feedback that I was getting from folks, right? At that point, I just kind of like serendipitously fell into this and kept following all the taps and the messages to move in this direction. It helped me cement my confidence in teaching and speaking, and eventually stepping on into speaking on podcasts and things like that. It's been a beautiful journey. But for me, it was the group coaching experience that cemented that I wanted to do this work on a larger scale, because I kept getting testimonials from people who were just like, you literally changed my life. I was in the red before I joined your program, and I went into further debt to join your program. And now I'm in the green, right? And now I can afford childcare. I can take my family on vacation. I can handle the medical bills, etc. Right? Looking at like those real world personal things that the impact that I had on people's lives outside of just helping their business and driving their numbers, that for me was like, wow, there's something here for all of us. We can all grow from this experience if I keep pouring into this work.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful, and
Oh.
eventually I will get to talking about the branding piece, but I want to talk a little bit more here. Educators, again, a big portion of my audience are educators. More and more and more frequently, we see, just like in the business world, in the education world, a lot of people have a side hustle. And, when I
Yeah.
was a kid growing up, most educators, their side hustle was like they mowed lawns in the summer, right? Or they did snow removal or whatever, right? That's not the case anymore. I mean, there's probably still some who do that for sure, but there are many who will invest in real estate, or they will create their own small business through Teachers Pay Teachers or through TikTok or Instagram, right? And actually working to support the individual that they used to be. One of my favorite quotes, I've said it here on the podcast so many times, and so people, you guys can probably all say it with me, right? Rory Vaden said, we are uniquely positioned to help the person we once were. So the work you're doing, you're trying to help other people who were like you. I want to have you talk just a little bit more about what that what that draw to the group coaching is, and
Mm.
what you see from individuals as they come in. Maybe with the idea being this, for our listeners who maybe have started their side hustle or who are thinking about their side hustle, what's some recommendations you have, or some things that you share with people to help them really get dialed in on what it is that they want to try and do?
Yeah. I am someone that ended up doing what I did because I listened to what people asked for. And so I never really embarked on like, oh, I'm going to create a product or a program or a service. I want to do this and move in this direction in this way. Really, it was accidental, meaning people were tapping my shoulder and saying, I want this from you. This is how I want it. This is when I want it. This is how much hand holding I need. Right. This is, I actually just need you to do everything for me in this domain, etc. Right. And so I got a really good sense of what were the fears? What were the hesitations? What were the gaps in skills? Right. And all of those inputs from all those taps and all that feedback helped me arrive at a place of designing a program that really helped to address all those things, knowing that success as an entrepreneur requires a whole tribe behind you, requires a set of skills, mindset shifts, shift in perception of self, right? Reconstructing your self narrative and things, and even just asserting new boundaries, and managing teams and managing energy. Like there are so many new things that come with that title. And after considering all the feedback that I got, I arrived at the group coaching experience because I knew that I alone couldn't do it all. I knew that tribal knowledge, is the way that things really move, right? People learning from one another, people getting validation from one another more than just me, right? As the instructor or the coach in the program, right? That is a really powerful experience. And so I wanted to create that dynamic. I wanted people to also have a network, right? That's the other really important thing. No matter where you came from, I wanted you to go through this program, make a couple of business buddies, and carry on your relationships beyond the program because it's essential for your long-term success and for your business's success. And for me, energetically, whether I'm working with one person or I'm speaking to 10, right? Because I was doing it virtually, it wasn't more energy from me to have a greater impact, right? For those people who couldn't afford to work with me one on one, right? Doing things at scale on my end allowed more people to step into the opportunity, and reap the benefits of, again, being part of a network, a group experience, etc. And so the way that I structured the program was you pay your initiation, it gave you lifetime access to a library of content and tools, and then a monthly sort of fee thereafter, right? I didn't want to lock people into year-long programs and things like that if it didn't make sense, right? This is supposed to be something you do on the side, not your full time.
I just think that's super powerful, man. It's just, you've got me like reflecting on my own work right now. Very much so. I mean, it's like this is a coaching call for me. Really appreciate that so much, because well, I think when I think about what I do with coaching leaders, and in most of the time that is a school district brings me in. They have me be a part of the entire group. But as I am continuing to scale and grow my business, the both group coaching and the coursework pieces are things that are in the works for me right now. So um, you've got me almost Not almost. You've got me lost in thought on my own work and reflecting on my own work, which, so if nobody is getting anything out of this, I am. This is by far and away, totally worth it, right? But I guarantee others are getting something out of it. I do
Mm.
want, before our time starts to get away from us, I do want to come back to the personal brand piece.
Mm.
And again, kind of the overarching thing there, but we don't have to go right at it. But part of that overarching thought, again, in education, taking control of the narrative is so important, and understanding
Yes.
that we as individuals have a brand, that we've moved past the days of digital footprint. It is literally your personal brand, but then also the brand of our classroom, the brand of our school, the brand of our district. Talk a little bit about maybe where you help people sharpen the sword, if you will, around how to get clear about their own personal brand, and maybe some steps that you recommend people do so that they can really gain that clarity.
Yeah. I think for anyone that maybe isn't bought into like the personal branding thing, I want to just address the necessity of it, right? We live now in a world that's completely shifted. All industries are shifting towards this sort of like subject matter expert, contract, gig work sort of economy where we are no longer going to be at one job for 10 years, right? We are going to have a set of skills, and we are going to have a set of certifications, and we're going to tap in and out of projects and tap in and out of organizations and tap in and out of school years, etc. And the best way to prepare for the evolving economy is to seize control now. When you're thinking about developing your own personal brand, the first thing that you've got to do is take inventory and take stock of all the things that you're capable and all the things that you've accomplished, and have a moment of looking at yourself in the mirror before you get into like weaving any sort of narrative for a marketplace or for a crowd. You've got to really rewire your inner narrative. You've got to see your own swagger, your own power, your own sexiness, your own everything, right? Because if you don't see it, then ain't nobody else going to pick up what you put down, right? It's not going to shine in any kind of writing or speaking or anything that you do if you don't really own what it is that you do internally. And so I invite people to begin with just list out all the things. How much money have you raised total in your career for whatever projects you've been working on? How many students have you taught total in the span of your career? 400, 500, 700, right? Take inventory of all the impact that you've had, all the skills that you've acquired, certifications you've acquired, hours that you've put into things. Quantify all those things, get them down on paper. It'll help you with future exercises, but first and foremost, it'll help you recognize and realize, like, okay, I've been working. I've been working hard on myself. It's no wonder I haven't been attracting the opportunities I deserve because I didn't even see what I'm capable of until now. And I like to adopt this mentality that I learned in my culture. Lo que no se exhibe, no se vende. If you don't show it off, ain't nobody going to buy what you got. Right. So you got to start from there. You got to figure out what it is that you bring to the table for yourself. And you've got to own that in your heart and in your mind before you go down this path of doing this work. Right.
Man,
Then
oh man, I love that so much, man. Oh no, keep going, man. I'm loving this right now.
it's really important, right? I went through a moment when I went through this exercise of like, hold on a second. I've worked at these many companies. I've driven over $500 million in revenue in my career. I've managed over 200 people, right? Like I really had like a moment of like, whoa, I I did that. I didn't recognize that I did that or that I'm capable of that because I've just been going, going, going. And so it is really important to lift that veil and look at yourself in the mirror for a moment. All right. Then you move into like the tactical things. What does it take to build a brand? What is your story? Right? What is it? If I'm going to your website or your bio anywhere on your LinkedIn or whatever, like what is it that you're feeding me that pulls me towards you? What is the path? Who do you serve? Why do you serve? What's your secret sauce? Right? What's your philosophy in this realm? Like give me a reason to care or to have interest in what it is that you've got to say. And you're not going to arrive at like a really good narrative if you don't know what you bring to the table first. So that's why there's a sequence to this work. Once you've got your narrative down, once it is that you like understand like what you bring to the table and who it is that you serve, then it's you can get into the more nitty-gritty things about building the brand and building a personal brand, right? So thinking about, yes, I like to offer an order of operations, right? First, you got to figure out a product or a service or something that you want to be known for, right? And or something that you speak on or something that you publish, right? Whatever it is, you've got to have some sort of meat and potatoes that you're serving up for people, right? All respect to my vegan listeners, but you got to have something to serve for folks, right? Then you move into the marketing, right? Once you're clear about like this is my subject matter domain, this is the work I'm going to do. These are the things I'm going to write, publish, speak, sell, consult, provide services about. Then you can get clearer on your marketing. So you start with product, then you move into marketing, the website, the social media. What are you going to write about? What are you going to say? How often are you going to speak? What channel are you going to own? Right? Where are you going to build your audience? And then you can move into the sales and the operations of things, right? That's when you can figure out, okay, I'm going to move in this way. I want to start taking contracts on the side. I want to start working on partnerships. I want to start helping with fundraising or business development or graphic design. And so, I now need a process for onboarding people, getting paperwork and contracts in place and things like that. And there are all these like services that exist now that I refer people to all the time. Things like Zen Business uh, and all these sort of like one-stop shops that have flat costs for starting your business, right? Because here's the thing about like starting. I'm not an attorney. Like all disclaimers, I'm not offering legal advice. But what I know and understand is that when you start a business, you have an opportunity to start a limited liability corporation. And it's going to be really important as you engage in being a personal brand and building a personal brand or thinking about providing services or speaking or publishing in any sort of domain. You want to protect your personal assets from any brand assets, right? And so a limited liability corporation will protect you in case someone decides to, let's say you publish an online program and someone decides to, take legal action against you. They are taking legal action against the business, and it's a threat to the business assets versus you, the person, right? And your personal finances and your personal assets. So it's a level of protection you want to consult with an attorney about before you really go live, before you go to the races, announce to the world that here you are, and then you've got a buy button.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, man, I have to come back to it for just a second, and then we're already at that point where we're gonna jump to the last question to ask on the podcast. But I want to come back to it for just a minute. The importance of getting up out of the weeds,
Oh,
and I call it balcony level leadership, but you spoke about it as well as I've probably ever heard anybody talk about it. That get up, get a little bit out of the mix, out of the fray, and really take stock, take some inventory of what you are doing, what you've accomplished, where you are. I feel like it's just so important for us in the regular work, but also on that reflection piece to really take that step up and get on the balcony and really figure out what have I done? What have I accomplished? Because you're so right, Luis. We just get so dialed in that we don't realize exactly what we're accomplishing, and that makes it impossible for us to own it if we don't take that step. So just, I don't know, riff just a little bit more on that, because I just think that is so important.
yeah. There are a number of ways of going through this. I invited listeners to consider taking inventory of accomplishments. I think there's also a level of like deepening your self-awareness and what kind of leader you are, what kind of thinker you are, and the way that you operate and collaborate. Because that is also going to be really valuable in the ways that you think about positioning yourself and for your personal brand, right? You can go through the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram, sort of tests and figure out your personality types. That's certainly a place to start, right? But even thinking about doing deeper level work of working with a life coach, a business coach, or a therapist, right? I think it takes an entire village to help you in any sort of pursuit. And you have all these tools and resources available to you. If you've got access to them, then leverage them, right? And the more self-awareness you develop, the higher level of confidence, the higher level of vibration and energy and things that you bring to the work that you do, it increases your magnetism for opportunity, right? Even if you don't have it all figured out, if you exude confidence and you exude passion, people are already going to lean into what it is that you're doing. They're going to cheer for you. They're going to want to see you succeed, right? And so think about that, right? What does it take to arrive at that level of magnetism? It does take a moment of just pause and spend that time doing that work. And I invite leaders to do it regularly, right? I always talk about seasons in business, right? There's spring, winter, summer, right? There are times in my business where I get really creative and really, really focused and building the next thing, producing, writing, creating the next thing. And then there are seasons where I don't want to build or produce or be in front of a computer. I want to socialize. I want to get out there and network and shake hands and meet people and talk about the work that I'm doing and build relationships, right? I call that the summer. Summertime is my social time, right? The fall is where I like, my creative fall and my creative winter. I always talk about that. Those are the times where I really sit down and hunker down and get focused on planning, strategizing, execution, looking at my numbers, looking at up leveling, right? I think it's really important to recognize your own seasonality so that everything that you do is aligned, right? There are times where I've taken on projects that, on paper look amazing, right? How can I possibly pass this up? But I wasn't in my season of creative or creativity. Um, I was in my season of being social. And so, it was at odds. I took on a project that just in the end I got it done and I got it done well and delivered and everyone was super happy. But my experience was grueling because it just wasn't aligned. And so I invite people to get to that level of self-awareness.
Yeah, I'm so glad we went back into that. That self awareness piece is just huge. Man, I'll tell you what, our time has just flown by. But it's just an incredible conversation. So we're at that point where I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody here on the podcast. So this is the Leaning Into Leadership podcast. So, Luis, what are you doing right now to lean into leadership?
Yeah, I have just spent a summer. I've gone through my summer season. It's actually summer here, but I've gone through a summer of loving myself, doing the self-love thing, doing the healing thing, getting ready to work at a higher level, make higher impact, bigger contributions, pursuing bigger opportunities that have been knocking at my door that I've shied away from or been too afraid to pursue or take on. We are working through all those limited beliefs and energy and all that thinking and getting ready for that next season of self. As far as my leadership pursuits right now, in addition to continuing to develop my personal brand, which is shifting, I've gone through this exercise of teaching people how to sell things, and now I'm really focused on teaching people how to sell themselves. So I'm going through a whole pivot in my own personal brand while also embarking on a new journey of being a co-founder of a startup. And so I'm stepping back into the business building saddle. I am building something that I've never built before that will absolutely stretch me and stretch my capacity and is going to teach me things that I never knew I could learn. And I'm stepping into this next level of leadership and building something big from the ground up.
No doubt that it's going to be something amazing and something for us to keep our eyes open for without question. So, Luis, people are going to want to get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to find you, learn more about you, check out all of the incredible stuff that you've done?
Yeah, I hang out on LinkedIn, so come find me, Luis Baez, and let me know that you heard this interview, and let me know what you thought and what I can do for you to help advance anything that's on your mind right now. And if you want to learn more about my secret sauce and steal all my playbooks for free, 99, head on over to learnfromluis.com. Anything that I've shared with you today, I have bottled and packaged into a free leadership course that I offer. And I size up all the lessons and micro doses to make it super digestible because I know you're busy.
Yeah, awesome. We'll put all that stuff down in the show notes so you guys can just hit those links and go check that stuff out. Luis Baez, man, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for joining me here on the podcast. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Darren. This was fun for me too, and I hope that anyone who listened in got something from this today.
Yeah, I guarantee they did. Once again, a huge thank you to Luis Baez for joining me here on the Leaning Into Leadership podcast. Make sure, folks, you hit the show notes, get connected with Luis, reach out and have a conversation with him. Check out that course that he does through LinkedIn. I think it is absolutely fantastic stuff. And now it's time for a pep talk. Today on the pep talk, I just want to extend what I was talking about in episode 169. So if you haven't listened to episode 169, the one right before this one, which is all about instructional leadership, go back and listen. But folks, I think it is just so important that as school leaders, we take a pause right now. Here we are in the middle of October. We're deep into the year. We're past the honeymoon phase. Parent-teacher conferences are happening, all of that stuff. You're into the second quarter. So many of you that I've talked with, just, wow, I can't believe we've already finished the first quarter. Take a pause, get up on the balcony, and you need to take a little check-in and think about and see for yourself, how are you doing about the things that you care about? What are those things that you're really, really focused on? And the one that I want to really get at is instructional leadership. And again, episode 169 is all about instructional leadership and some strategies to help you get there. But if you have told yourself at any point in time since July 1st, I really want to focus on getting in the classrooms more. I really want to focus on spending more time with my teachers. I really want to spend more time focusing on supporting teaching and learning in my school. Get up on the balcony. I want you to check in on yourself. Are you following through on that? If you are, what are the things that you've done well? If you are, what are some things you can continue to work on? If you are not, what are the obstacles that are getting in your way? What are the barriers that are holding you back? And what are some steps that you can take to get that focus on instructional leadership back front and center? If you haven't listened to episode 169, there are 5 tips in there to help you go get that back front and center where that focus belongs. That's what I've got for you this week, folks. Make sure that you're spending the time getting into the classroom, spending time with your teachers, having those conversations about pedagogy, about data, about instructional practices. Make sure you're supporting your kids and keeping the focus where it belongs. Get out there. Have a road to awesome week.